is up, everybody? Welcome to local band Smokeout Canada. I am your host, Nate. Some call me Nasty Nate. Some just call me Nate. But that is neither here nor there. What is important is that you guys are here tuning into the show. We have Cliff of the Get Mines and Chunk joining us in about 11 minutes here. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. So if you, let's look into them a little bit, shall we? If there's anything to find. I think we got a three-piece. And I think we know they're kind of in that grunge, or not that grunge, that stoner aspect of things. I believe they are from somewhere in British Columbia. Do I have more information than that? No, unfortunately. We'll have to find out later. But maybe if we look up the Get Mines. Vancouver-based. Okay, so I'm guessing they're both from Vancouver. We got Vancouver-based rock and roll to shake your booty to, as they've described it. Which, that's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. I know depends on the day, depends on the time, but I enjoy some rock from time to time. It's not my main jam, but it's still, some good old school stuff. And again, we got a three-piece here, it looks like. So what we are going to do, as you guys may or may not know, we were actually supposed to have Cliff on a few weeks ago, and then I got sick. And so we're doing it this week. And I'm stoked that we were able to reschedule it and get it done before the little bit of a hiatus coming up in mid-April.
Good, how are you? Can you hear us?
Good. Yeah, I can. Thank you. I'm just getting my camera kind of set up here because I know it's acting like a bit of a... not working how I want it to. There we go. We'll just get that guy set up, get a bit of a shot. There we are. All should be good. Turn off, turn back on. Boom. How are you guys doing? You guys having yourselves a good day?
We're doing good. Got a Pilsner, can't complain, on a comfy couch.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful outside, when we're nice and safe in a basement.
Awesome. And Cliff, who do you have with us today?
This is Michael Krauscher. He is a producer working at Little Red Sounds, and he has done the Get Mines albums and the latest Chunk album.
Oh, there you are.
Awesome.
Hey,
Michael, pleasure. It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And Cliff, thank you for rescheduling. I felt really bad when we got to Tuesday, and I just got brick-walled with whatever hit me. And I'm just being like, I can't even talk. I can't host a show. So thank you for... letting that happen. For those who maybe are just with us now, do you mind just introducing you guys yourself? I guess we already got Michael's introduction.
Well, if he wants to do it.
Yeah, I can do a reintroduction.
Yeah.
I'm Michael, producer engineer at Little Red Sounds, and I did the last Chunk record and a couple Get Mines records too.
Awesome.
And I'm Cliff Deason, and you may know me from such bands as Man the Wolf, We Hunt Buffalo, The Get Mines, Chunk. That's probably about it.
Damn, busy guy. I have to ask, how long have you been at this thing? Because that's a lot of bands, and usually, people that have a few bands on their belt, they've been at this for a while. Not saying like gigging wise, but they've been playing an instrument for quite a bit of time, and I'm curious how long you've been just kind of hacking away at whatever instrument you have.
Well, I started playing guitar when I was a lot younger. Probably like 25, 26 years ago. I started playing guitar and started actually gigging, I'd say about 13 years ago.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So,
a bunch of bands that kind of just fizzled out, and then the Get Mines is the longest standing one that I'm in. I other than We Hunt Buffalo, but I wasn't with them from the beginnings.
Okay, how long has the Get Mines been around then?
Oof, I want to say 11 years, maybe somewhere around there.
Oh shit! So they're a band that you've not only been with for a long time, but they're one of those bands that you've been with since your first few years within the scene.
Totally, yeah.
That's really cool. Michael, with that, no, I am going to ask you questions too, because I want to pick your brain a little bit on audio
No
stuff.
pressure. I'm just here for support too, so it's all good.
Hell yeah.
You weren't even expecting me.
This is true. That's really curious. That's cool. So I guess before you got into the scene, were you primarily self-taught? Did you have lessons of any kind? Were you kind of a bit of both? Like, what was your starting years kind of like? Just learning your instruments, kind of figuring out what you liked?
Well, my parents put me when I was really young, and I hated it. And I wish I stuck with it, because I want to be way better at piano now. But I picked up the guitar because I remember seeing some older kids playing at our school, and they played some Green Day songs, and I was like, holy cow, that's cool. And I picked up the guitar, and then I started lessons, and I did lessons for about 2 months, and I hated that. But I loved the guitar so much, I just started learning on my own, and I would mostly listen to the radio and like try to figure out what was playing on the radio and just like play along. And I think mostly how I've taught myself is just learning other people's songs.
That's really cool. And doing it by ear too, which is really cool, because that's something, like, I'll even admit it, that's something like I don't do a whole lot. Like, I'll learn the basis of a part through a tab, and then from there maybe try to figure out some parts by ear. But I like having that initial foundation, or at least something that says, hey, this tuning. Because, oh man, especially with like some metal, you're like, all right, so this could be anywhere from G to, how many strings are they playing on again? Okay, cool. Now I'm just going to give up. But that's really cool that you did that, and also that you took in like what was on the radio. Did you find there were certain artists on the radio that you gravitated more towards wanting to learn, or was it just kind of like whatever piqued your interest?
I was always a big fan of the old classics. I wanted to learn all Led Zeppelin stuff. It was always classic rock that I listened to growing up. So I just tried to figure that kind of stuff out. It was very bluesy, so I ended up gravitating a lot towards blues. And later on, like, met a good buddy that was really quite good at blues, and that's kind of how I learned how to solo. We just have some drinks and just progression ever, and just go back and forth and muck around. That's
really cool, especially finding someone that you want to learn off of and having that influence and bouncing off of them. That's really cool. Was that happening more in the later years as you were starting to get into the scene, or were you doing that more even from the get-go?
That was after like a few years of playing. But I wasn't in a band or anything yet at that point. I used to basically go and hang out with my friends and bring a guitar and like sit in the corner and play. Like, I just always wanted to play. So I would just find, and then I eventually started going to people's houses. There was always another buddy who wanted to do the same thing. So it kind of just, I just always seemed to surround myself with that kind of situation, and I'd always be that guy at the party that wanted to just play his guitar. But literally, I could just sit in the corner and just play it. I didn't care. Like, that's all I wanted to do. That's really cool. The whole idea of like, I just want to, you guys can do that. I'll be here. I'll hang out. But I'm also just going to play my thing. No, you don't have to watch me. I'll still be a part of the conversation. I just want to do my thing as well. That's really cool. That kind of shows the passion, I guess, that would lead you to then, after your 13 years of just like doing all of that, and I imagine meeting some musicians throughout, like, just that experience, going to parties with your instrument, learning from them. When did you decide you wanted to get into the scene? And then what got you into the scene for the first time? Well, I was always going to shows. I grew up in Victoria, so there wasn't as many shows to go to. I actually ended up moving to Vancouver because I wanted to go to more shows. Okay. And the more I went to, the more I was like, man, I just really want to try this. And actually, it was when I met Eric Thornton down in the Sasquatch Fest in Washington State. Okay. We camped beside each other, and then we found out that we both lived in the Lower Mainland, and we jammed all weekend. And when we got back from the festival, we ended up getting together and just started writing songs together. And that eventually formed Man the Wolf. And, it was finally at the point where I felt it was good enough to go on a stage and play for people.
That's really cool. I find sometimes it just takes situations like that where you maybe have that itch, but you don't have the confidence to go with it. And then you just have to have a few other people that maybe are all in the same like state, but when you're all together, that kind of just dissipates and it just turns into, no, let's try it. Let's just fucking do it. Let's just try it, see what happens. And
That's it, exactly.
That's awesome. Those first few years, what were some things that you really took away and learned? Because you, like you said you were going to shows already, so you were already kind of familiar with the scene in regards to like shows happening, what venues they're happening at, and all of that. But what were some things you learned as a performer in those first few years, like even before you got into the Get Mines? Because that is such a huge, I don't want to say a shock or hurdle or hill, but there's a lot to take in when you first get into a scene and you start meeting everyone and you start figuring out everything that goes behind actually putting on a show, from the promoter, the sound guy, the venue owner, the bands. If any of the bands are larger and touring and have a tour manager, something like that. So, sorry, long-winded question, but yeah, what were some key things you learned in those first few years?
Honestly, I've been learning more now about all that back end stuff you talked about than I did back then. Back then, we kind of just, and for years, just kind of like hopped on whatever shows people asked us, or like, we heard of a buddy's band is playing, like, oh, we'll hop on that show, and like, I never really cared for like all the back end stuff, or like how to like, I don't know. It was just kind of spiraled after a bit, right? Like it just started playing shows, and you meet people at the show. You meet another band, and you're like, okay, yeah, like, let us know if you're playing another show. We'll jump on, and if we hear something, we'll let you know, right? And it was kind of a lot of just like who I met, rather than like trying to find like avenues of getting shows, I guess.
Well, that's even like hugely important. The networking aspect of, I guess, to my most I know, just had to be sure the colors disappeared and it threw me off for a second. But that networking and natural networking, not like going to a show with the intent of like meeting everyone, but just naturally playing a show or two, meeting people in other bands that you get on with and that you vibe with, and then just being able to stay in contact. And through that, maybe they know someone and it keeps going from there. When did you guys just primarily play in the BC area, or did you guys go off and tour? Did you go off into the States? Like, because very different scenes. Like within Alberta, we have two big cities that are a couple hours away, then a few small towns, and then that's it, unless you want to drive 7 hours to BC or however long to Saskatchewan. So I'm curious, like, what is the scene like for you guys? Like, do you venture south more? Do you stay primarily just in British Columbia?
I keep trying to go down to the States, which I think is a total untapped market, but as far as I know, and even knows about this, but as far as I know, that getting visas and the crap that they put you through going down that way is a lot, and it's a tough thing to go from Canada down to the States. It's been mostly like, stick around the Western Canada side for like the Get Mines. We have Buffalo. I went with them to Europe, which was a really cool tour. And I know Michael's done the whole cross Canada thing with
Yeah, I don't know much about getting visas and going into the States. I haven't done that, but I've only heard how I've only heard stories from other bands about.
I've heard it's a headache.
Done the long drives, like the 12-hour in the van drive, and in it, dirty socks everywhere.
Yeah,
bands love that prairie mark. Once you get to Alberta and you're like, all right, we're hitting this end, and then what? Then we drive.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, right? You get to Regina, and then you're like, well, we might as well go to Winnipeg, but it's like that's a hop, and then you're in Winnipeg. You're like, okay, we might as well, and then you're just,
Yep.
If you get all the way east, then there's like, a lot more those you can kind of play, but it's a big drive in between there.
Mm-hmm. And then coming
Feels
back
a lot
too.
Of bands.
Coming back too. That's what I hear is always the headache for bands is booking across, if they do cross Canada, booking a tour in a way where that's a cycle on to and from, because if there's like you're playing one way and then just driving all the way back, the drive back is just so long and you don't have anything to really separate it. It's just one end of the country to another, and we're a pretty big landmass.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely got to find other places on the back. I mean, we like going out to Alberta with the Gap Mines and doing a little circuit there. We try to hit a couple there, and then maybe it'd be a big drive back, but like it's not too bad if you can at least do a show every day and not have to spend a whole day driving. If you do like Kamloops or Kelowna, right, and then Calgary and maybe even Medicine Hat. That's where you're at, right?
Yeah, that's where for the next month or so. I'm moving to Calgary come the end of April, start of May. But I got so many gigs that just plopped on my schedule for Medicine Hat for April, I think, this morning. Yeah. Woke up to a message being like, hey, can you do this date and maybe this date? And I'd be like, I can do the two here. I can't do the one in Calgary. That is the weekend I move in. One show that weekend, yeah. 2 shows that weekend, no. That's too much. With a move. If I wasn't moving, easy peasy. But
yeah, right.
But that's really cool. Like, because I noticed that's kind of the thing. A lot of the Western Canadian bands, if they can get out of their province, they'll at least go one over and hit most of the market there, and usually do fairly well. It's branching out in our case further east, and then bands out on the east further west, getting past those middle provinces that can be a pain, because there's only, like you said, there's Regina and Winnipeg, maybe Saskatoon, but there's
yeah, Saskatoon's great. Mm-hmm. But it's still it's a big jump. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Couple big jumps.
Yeah, that's when you have to coordinate beforehand, knowing like, all right, so who's not drinking tonight? Why? Because you're driving after this. We don't get to stay. We can hang out for a bit, but after we're loaded, have fun, buddy. Don't worry. You got so-and-so beside you just to keep you awake.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how you have to do it, right?
I'm curious. You said that you just started paying attention to all that back-end stuff more. I'm curious, what made you start paying attention to that more? Because I know there's a lot of bands where it is the furthest thing from their mind. Literally, it's just tell us when to show up, where to set up, if we're getting paid and how much we're getting paid, and we'll show up and do our thing, have a good time. Well, we're not going to bug you. We're just here to play, have fun. But I'm curious, when did that shift happen for you, where you started focusing more on that back end stuff?
Well, I think it's just that, I mean, every musician play music and have all the fun stuff, but like, just even just doing it, just sending a bunch of emails, like spending like a couple hours just sending people emails and new people and getting your stuff out there in a different way, or just reading articles on how, I didn't know about Earshot. So Earshot is as a database where you can upload your stuff for radio stations, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of people know about that, but I didn't know about that. And researching stuff like that, kind of what I've been trying to force myself to do more, because I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I never wanted to do that. Lucky enough, I've had a couple people on the way that have done that. Mm-hmm. But I should know that. I've been doing this for so long, all this kind of stuff. And there are, I mean, we talked about the getting songs into a network that could maybe get you on a video game or
licensing. Yeah,
licensing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just think about it as music, but it could actually that could pay for a whole tour if you get onto something, right? And then some, and it's just something that I feel like really should be looking into and researching more,
I agree, and I love that you bring up sync licensing, because that's something that I've known about for years, and every time I hear about it, I'm like, light bulb, that's a great fucking idea. And then later on in the day, it's like, and now it's drifted so far into the back of the ether that we'll see if it comes back. Cliff, it says the audio on your end's a little choppy, so if you want, just within Discord, maybe go check the noise gate on Discord.
How do I do that?
So let me pull up mine here so I can show you. There's a little gear called user settings. So click on.
Push this closer here too. Maybe it's better.
Yeah, that works too. Because there's probably a little bit of a noise gate. There's an auto one. Yeah, closer works perfectly. Thanks for letting us know. I can hear it, but I was hoping that it was like I could understand it. I was hoping the audience could, but they chimed up.
Let's get intimate.
Let's do it.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Hear me now. Can you hear?
I can. Yes. But sync licensing, like, not only is that a really beneficial thing for you to like try to do, but there's so many ways you can do it with one song. Like from having just like a vocalist track, like where it's just the instrumental, one where maybe the vocals are a bit more, like there's something more to it. Like you can experiment more and be like, all right, well, let's do like 3 different versions of this. We can maybe keep the instrumental the same, but just like 3 different mixes of this song so that we have 3 different chances to maybe get this song sync licensed, because when people look at it, they're looking at different things. And it's so cool that that is an option and that it's easier to get to. I just wish it was more top of mind most of the time and not one of those like aha moments that disappear right away. So for anyone watching, keep that in mind. For myself, mental note, and for you, Cliff and Michael, thank you for bringing that up, because the more that gets brought up and talked about and mentioned, the more it'll just be something that I think musicians in general feel more comfortable trying to pursue. Because I think that's the other thing with sync licensing or looking about getting your songs on video games, movies, TV shows, anything like that. It's the whole commercial aspect and a bunch of punk, rock, and metal guys being the whole like, I don't want to sell out. No. And then getting past that, and also the little bit of lack of confidence that comes back with that, being the whole like, I don't think I'm good enough to get the deal, so I don't want to try. So
right.
Just going for it.
And a piece of advice I would say is always when you're doing a record, always get your stuff with no vocals, because you always want an instrumental. Because I mean, I don't know if you notice on movies and stuff, you'll hear a song that you recognize, and you just hear the instruments playing in the background, and then once the scene ends or someone stops talking, the vocals kick in. Like they want that mix. So it's really important to have those instrumentals.
100%. The options that you provide with that, it gives you more opportunity. My buddy Jumbo chimed up and said, anyone else notice that these 2 guys are the perfect opposite of each other? Bald, long hair, beard, mustache, Hawaiian shirt, flannel, glasses, no glasses. Whoa, I'm baked. I love that. Thanks for chiming in. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free. I know occasionally I will miss things, and I like when the audience occasionally comes in with something. Mopsy, also I realize you followed before the show. Much love. Thank you to you. Before I forget, all new friends get these. Yeah. You guys can't hear it. Usually I have it set up so you guys can hear it.
Yeah, I was like, what is that?
There's sound effects. My effects cube didn't want to do its job properly. But that's always a shame. I prefer when my guests can't hear the sound effects. Being
insane with your role.
Yeah. Boom. But I'm curious because I've noticed you're primarily playing bass in all the videos I've seen of you. Yeah, we've talked a lot about you playing guitar. When did you shift? Or has it always been like you've played a bit of both and it's just the role that you were best suited in? Or is it something you just felt more drawn to over time? Like, I'm curious about that.
I'll give you the honest story when it comes to Get Mines. When I was playing in Man the Wolf, I was playing guitar primarily, and really wanted to jump around on stage and like kind of just go nuts. And a couple times I went a bit too nuts on stage, and I was screwing up the guitar. And when we started the Get Mines, me and my buddy Dave, and I was like, you know what? I'd love to play bass. I'd love to like not think as much and just Sorry, but
Just shut your brain down.
just shut the brain down and just. So wanted, and then I loved it. I found a new avenue to see the songs and like really respected how bass created, like when you matched up with the drummer, how cool that was and how great it was to be part of that rhythm section. And I really fell in love with it as much as I love playing guitar and like that. I think that's my instrument, but like the bass side is just like fun.
I love that you brought up its relation to the drums, because that's something a lot of bass players, when they start out, they completely forget about. They just go, I'm a match the guitar. That's my job. Note for note. No changes. There we go. Thank you. Have a good night. But then when you actually start feeling like, no, what's that beat? Wait. What if I know like the notes that were in, but what if oh shit, I think I just added something dynamic to this. Okay. And you just start going down that rabbit hole. And I love that as someone who also started in guitar and then transitioned to like drums and bass. That relation between the bass and the drums. I feel a lot of people, once they start looking at bass more that way, it all starts to make a whole lot more sense on what you can do with that instrument.
When you line up with that on the drum, and you're like, you guys are hitting you're hitting the note right. It's fine.
Yeah. It's still being a little choppy, but I think I'm not sure what that is. We'll see. We'll try, see how it goes for the next few minutes. If not, we'll take a brief second just to see if maybe it's the settings on Discord, because they can do that sometimes. Love using it as a platform. Not my friend sometimes. But what was I going to go with that?
I guess settings here, stand by.
Oh, no, thought, come back. There, okay. When it came to the Get Minds, like, because that band's been around for, you said, 11 years now, what are some things that you've learned about being in a band throughout that time? Because that's a long time for a band to be together, regardless of, like, 3, 4, 5 people. And obviously, like, you got to learn how to coexist with your band members. And I'm curious what you learned throughout this past decade plus playing with this group, like the things that outside of music that it takes for that dynamic to work.
Being in a band is like being married. You gotta compromise, and when you have an idea and the rest of the band isn't keen on it, you can't go crying about it, and you should try what they suggest because it might actually be better.
I love that. One thing DJ brought up when we had him on last week that's very similar is the whole, like, everything we do is signed off. If we get to a song and there's a part someone doesn't like, we go through every avenue we can to see if we can make it work. And if not, it's shelved for a later date. Like, we don't try to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, because that would be the worst thing to do, is have someone go on stage playing something they're not into, because that's how you kind of start planting seeds of resentment within, like, that happens with a lot of bands. We see it with, like, bigger bands too, that last 15 years later, half the band's gone, being like, yeah, I just didn't like being not listened to. So now I'm doing my own thing where I get to write everything. It's great.
Exactly. And you know what? Like, maybe just let someone try their idea. And then, like, we always do that in the Get Minds. It's the best thing about our songwriting. Like, someone will have an idea and, you know, like, I may not agree with it or whatever. We're like, well, fuck it, let's try it. And then we play it and we're like, oh yeah, you know what? It was better before. Like, we all kind of agree at that point. So it's like, you know, give it a shot. And then, but like, it's all about how the song sounds, right? It's not about how you want to play a riff or whatever. It doesn't make the song better.
Yeah, in the end, you don't want to impress the virtuoso that's in the audience. You want everyone to have fun and enjoy the song. Like, it's about the audience, not like the one guy who's probably really good in the back just judging, being like, was that, no, he went to a minor instead of a major. tisk, 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 like those.
That's too sad.
Now I'm going to ask this one, and then I'm going to lead into more of dual questions here. If you could describe a Get Mine show, how would you describe it?
Shiny jackets, tons of wicked riffs, and just straight up like non-stop headbanging fun.
Hell yeah. Now, Michael, as their producer, what 3 words would you use to describe a Get Mine show?
Wet. Those jackets are always on. So wet's got to be one. Yeah, it's definitely a wet rockin' party. How about that?
I like that. And now to keep things, have everyone involved a bit more. When did you two finally hook up and start working with each other? Like, how did that come together?
You mentioned Man the Wolf. That's how we kind of met. I did Man the Wolf record. So I knew Cliff first as a guitar player. That was how many years ago? Was it 15? Yeah.
Damn, it's amazing how time flies. Like, yeah, I'm guessing we're close to like similar ages, like early 30s, somewhere within there. And just looking back at like being like, shit, even back then, at that number, I can be like, oh yeah, no, there's the start of the time. Fuck, I'm getting old. Okay, here we go. Oh, Paul, welcome to the show. If you have any questions, feel free to shout them out, brother. And we always appreciate you coming to hang out. That's really cool. So you've known Cliff for quite a while then. Have you always been working with the Get Mines from the start, or is that something that you kind of came into down the line?
No, the first record I hopped in halfway through. I mixed the first record, mixed and mastered, and then and then from then on, I was working with them from the get-go tracking.
That is really cool. That's really cool because that means you have a lot of experience with them, and the relationship between you guys as like musicians.
we hang out when we're not making records too, so it's just like a ton of fun, to hang out with your best friends and make music.
It really is. I love that. I really love finding duality and relationships like that. It's like, oh no, everyone just vibes and they're doing their things together. This is fucking dope. How do you guys go about the process? Because the records definitely give off that like rock and roll vibe in the mix. And I'm curious, like, are we all organic? Is there a little bit in the box? Are we doing some like? I'm just curious about the entire process as an audio engineer myself.
I was kind of speaking about this with somebody the other day because I'm making this other record for a friend on to tape on like this Tascam 388 all in one, and so you have to commit and make these choices and move on and make these sacrifices. The last session we had, the machine just totally failed. We couldn't do it. So we were like, well, we have to do it to computer. And, it's not necessarily the medium that you record on, but the mindset that you use when you're recording it. So Get Mines and Chunk, we both make those records the same way. Everybody all together, no click track. And then we just add guitars on top and add vocals on top, So songs, they speed up, they slow down, It's like when you get way too picky, and you start just like perfecting these things and going in. I realized there's like, there's music where that's, necessary and that's cool. And I have made records like that where you chop things up and you line it up and it's got to be picture perfect. But I don't think this, subgenre of rock and roll should be like that. So yeah, we just play it until you're happy with it. And then
that's really cool.
Guitars on top.
I like that.
So pretty natural, I would say,
Yeah, so if you're recording drums, do you have like someone just recording or playing guitar with them through the headphones so that they still have that natural vibe?
Yeah, they're all in the room together, and like the amps are isolated in other rooms, and so everybody's together. We are using headphones just to get some sound separation because guitars. I think that guitars track better when they're really loud, especially for the kind of tone that Cliff is trying to get, which is more of a speaker distortion kind of sound, not necessarily like a, just like a drive pedal distortion.
Yeah, you're getting more of the push than like that metallic
Totally.
gain. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, put it in its own room and then mic that, same with the like the bass rig and just play it all together.
And I think the big key for both bands is that it starts with all three of them, and that's what we build off of, because that's what gives you the true feeling.
I definitely agree, especially for your guys' style, because like you said, Michael, there's some bands like it's generally like in the metal end, the prog end, even sometimes, where they want everything quantized to a grid, or at least edited to a point where it feels a bit tighter, and that loose drag or whatever's there is not there. It's just consistent across the board. But for both bands, Get Mines and Chunk, that doesn't work. There's a certain looseness that you get with everything, and that adds a certain energy to everything as well, which I really like. And it's cool that you guys take that like modern old school approach, like using older techniques with the modern tech to still get, like you said, the right result. And going in with the right mindset too, which is huge. I think that's something a lot of bands starting out don't really keep in mind when they're prepping to go record with someone or on their own, is that intent. It comes together so much easier when you have intent behind what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Have there been any things you've learned specifically while working with Get Mines or Chunk throughout the past few years as an engineer with that in mind? Because you got a lot of things moving at once, even though, again, you're doing things kind of separately, but together. I imagine there's probably been more than one aha moment throughout the process of being like, all right, no, we're doing this differently this time.
Yeah, well, actually, that might have been the aha moment with them, was that, like, I remember specifically first day of the Chunk record, we were like, let's try a click. And like right away, Joel was like, no, this is stupid, fuck that. And we were like, hey, well, I'm not gonna, then don't use it, So, maybe that was the big thing that I learned. I mean, I learn something every single day that I go into that studio, so it's hard to pinpoint, but that's why I'm obsessed with the job I have, is because I'm just never going to be done with it. I'm constantly learning. So that would probably be the biggest thing, yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that. Cliff, for you, have you learned anything throughout all these years recording with Michael that you can really tell, like, you've taken these key things away that you didn't have beforehand?
I've learned a ton off this guy. I mean, he's awesome. And every time, like he says, whenever we come in for the next album, it seems like we're trying a different method, or he's like, you know what, let's do this. And like something a little bit different that just turns out to be awesome. And like, I mean, when I was learning about recording, I would just do it in my house, and I always thought like, oh, you build the guitar track, and then the drummer plays along to that, and then you add on top of that, and then you know what I mean, like, and it's just like that's way too structured, and like the loose feeling like we're talking about is like my favorite thing that I've learned, and just playing all together in the room is just so key. It's just like, it shouldn't be all mapped out all the time. It works for some people, of course, I'm sure, but like for me and for the guys I play with, it just seems to really, really flow when we can all get together and play it like it's meant to be played.
Yeah, it complements the style.
That's really cool. And that's, like Michael said, where he's always learning something from what he does, and that's why he's passionate about it. It's cool that you're kind of taking the same thing from him. Like, I'm pretty sure every day you step into the studio, there's some little thing that you take away from it. And that not only shows, like, again, the passion, but the willingness to learn as well, which I think you've showcased kind of from the start of the conversation, from you playing guitar, just whatever songs popped up on the radio that you really kind of vibed with, and being like, I'm just going to learn that, to finding people to just play with, to learn, like, and like further expand your skills off of, to even now. That purpose of ever learning, I think that's really, really awesome, that even like 26 years in, like you said, you still have that. That's really cool. Michael, for you, because you do the audio engineering thing, and as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of people now that are getting more and more into working on things themselves and trying to figure mixing out. But there's one thing that I feel this is something that every audio engineer has dealt with, but at a certain point you get over. And that is the whole know when it's done. Like, when do you personally know when to stop and just let something be as it is?
Yeah, I this is so great. Again, I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, and I have a harder time knowing when to stop when I'm working on my own stuff. So, so maybe that's kind of what people struggle with. But when I'm working with another band, like it's not hard for me to know when to stop.
That's cool.
It just, you know, you're just like, no, that's it. It sounds good. Stop overthinking it. Like, this sounds great. Like, we're done.
Like when you keep trying to get that perfect vocal take and realize it was perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that is, I feel like one of the benefits of having somebody like me do a record for you, or have somebody else in general do a record for you, you know, is that they, you know, just have somebody you can trust, that you like hanging out with, that can just tell you like, no, just like that's cool. What you did is great. Don't overthink it.
I can't agree with you more on that. And there are benefits to having the digital age, or the digital age help this too, because you can go back over all your takes and be like, all right, so which one do you think's the one? Oh, none of them? No. Let's go back to like take number 4. Listen to this. Nope. Close your eyes and just listen.
It too, I feel like doesn't help at all. You know, like you do a take and then, you know, comp as you go. Like, was that good enough? No, do it again. And so don't even go back and listen to the takes, and then just like, hey, this is it. Do the next part.
No, I like that. It's
like, treat it like it's tape, you know, like it's destroyed after. If you didn't nail it, it's gone.
Forcing someone to commit to, that's really huge. And you saying that, like, having that experience with tape too, I think that's a huge benefit for you in having that mindset. Because I think it's very easy in the digital era to just be like, no, I got gigabytes of space. I got every take. I've been doing the same part for a half hour. Now I got 30 vocal takes to comp. Let's go. Instead of taking that time. I'm curious for you when it comes to tracking now as well. Do you find you have to tell musicians to like pause more? Because again, with the digital age, it's so much easier to just take a take, go. All right, didn't like it, stop, go again. But they're constantly getting aggravated if they're not hitting it and going over again. Versus back when tape was the only way, you couldn't do that. It was go, all right, rewind the tape.
Right. Yeah, so, if you added up all the time you took to like rewind tape, that at the end of the record, that was probably like a full day. No, I usually don't tell people to stop unless, I can see that they're either like physically, you know, in pain, which I think you should kind of be in charge of yourself. Like if you're singing, like let me know if, you know, if you're physically in pain, because you should stop doing it.
Yep.
Or you are really, really frustrated. And sometimes it sucks, but you just have to accept that, like, it's just going to be better tomorrow, you know, or like maybe it's just not today, and that's okay. Like just have something else that you can work on. Like as long as we specifically need to keep it fun, you know? Mm-hmm. And I kind of try to, you know, there's times where it is just like really, it's like hard work. It's something that people don't really think about, but yeah, playing guitar for like 10, 12 hours a day is like super fucking hard, you know. And it's like you have the job, like I'm sitting there like just telling you, you know, after you tell me it sounds sick, like like you're the one working, you know. So I do have to tell people if to stop only if I feel like it's just really frustrating. I can see the frustration. It's just not fun or something. Like, I don't know, go have a cigarette or something.
No, No, and it's hard for some people, I think, to recognize in the moment, because a lot of people will get that like, no, I know I can just say, just run it back one more time, instead of just realizing like, no, maybe if I like take 5 on this, don't stop overthinking the part, loosen up a bit. Maybe we'll get it if, in some cases, like drummers, guitarists, bassists, they have less of a risk of not being able to perform after a little bit of a break. Vocalists, especially if they're not communicating with you on how they're feeling, it's really easy for them to screw themselves over and just be like, all right, so you're out for a week now because we didn't know when to stop and you kept pushing it. And instead of knowing your body and being like, okay, as much as I want to hit this part, this is telling me no today. I need to step back. Come back tomorrow. Now they're like horse screwed something up and they got to wait. Sorry, I tend to ramble from time to time. Because,
no, it's all good.
For you though, because you brought up a very important thing, and it's something that's really easy to lose track of when you're on the work end. But how do you manage to keep fun within the studio, even in those aspects with bands?
Yeah, it's just moving, moving things along, like don't dwell on things. And like, I really feel like recording it should be performance based. So, like everybody that listens to music, they want to feel something when they listen to it. And it might be different for all genres. Maybe it's like crazy tech stuff. You want to feel like you're being impressed, but maybe if it's just like a ballad, you want to feel like sad, So if you're playing and you can bring yourself to that place that you felt when you wrote that song and you can give a performance, then, you should be wrapped up here pretty quick.
I started a chant with.
Oh yeah, we had it go on.
Stay stoked, fix it in post. Stay stoked, fix it in post.
It was like
I love
day
it.
one.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the best thing about Michael is that he finds ways to, like he says, like move it along. Like don't dwell on when things aren't hitting perfectly or you need a break or whatever, like, and you don't get, like, he's really, like, that's my favorite part of working with him. He's like, keeps it light, keeps you motivated and along, because when you're not moving along and you're just trying to circle around and do this one thing, it's just not gonna feel good.
Yeah, I personally don't want to listen to something that's perfect because that's not relatable. I can't relate to that. I'm not perfect. I can't make perfect music. I could try all day, but like, I can't do it. So, accept what you have and be happy with it and give it your best and try and stay positive.
I love that. Especially the back and forth we got there, because we got to have like a whole, like, just so much right there. I love it. But, goddamn thoughts disappearing right as I have them. I had something. 1 second. Sorry.
Was it about how we look really opposite?
No, it was about, well, first off, you both look stunning. Thank you. Marvelous, fantastic.
Hello.
And now the thought is back. Cliff, and I guess Michael as well, because as producers, there's a little bit of pride when our art we've worked on goes out and bands are stoked on it, then people are stoked on it. But Cliff, for you, how have you been feeling with the release of the most recent releases from both bands? Because I got to say, I dig them both. Like all our old school rock and roll, not really like the thing I go to listen to on a regular basis, but still something I enjoy and can appreciate. And I really dug the vibes that were coming off on the record, just the way it came across in the soundscape, the way you guys worked, everything. And I'm curious, how do you feel having those out? Is there anything that we should maybe keep an ear out for in the future, maybe? Like, how's that all going?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chunk album just came out, and I'm really stoked on that. That was amazing. We did the second Get Mines album some time ago now. It was just before COVID hit, and so it really kind of was a weird release because couldn't really tour on it or anything. But we're just trying to wrap up right now the third Get Mines album. And so that one's coming up, and we got quite a few songs for that. So we're kind of just planning out how we're going to release it and everything. But I think honestly, it to me it feels like a mix of the second album and the first album, where we found our balance of the raw and the polished, and that's kind of what I'm most stoked about. It's also kind of like we also kind of hit some new avenues where it's like, but everything just felt really. I mean, there were songs going into that album that not that I didn't like or anything, but I wasn't like, this is amazing. And then after it was like, oh man, like that really turned out to be a song that I love. Like, and it's just cool to see that happen after the recording process and like after you've worked through it and figured it out. Cause I mean, we kind of just were like, you know what, we gotta record some stuff. Let's go for it. And there was a few songs that weren't really finished. We kind of just finished them up like the practice before we went in the studio. And then we got in the studio and kind of just sorted through a lot of stuff and polish it all up there and finish it all up in the studio. And I think it turned out awesome. And I'm really excited to share that with everybody. Third Get Mines album. She's coming.
I'm stoked. When it's out, you got to send it our way to hear it. I shared the most recent Chunk album in the chat for everyone, so please go and check that out. Before we wrap everything up, I want to get final words of advice from each of you. And Cliff, since you're the main guest of the hour, I'm going to have you go last. So Michael, you first.
Giving advice to musicians? Or
musicians are, I think musicians or anyone. No, because I'm guessing you would classify yourself as a creative, because I'm guessing you also play music from time to time on your own.
Yeah.
So just young creatives that in any way, shape, or form are trying to get out there, whether it's artists trying to get out within their community, musicians trying to get out within their scene. Because a lot of what we all do, even though it's different, we deal with similar things.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's something that happened to me recently. I spent all of COVID just being this total nerd, building this crazy pedal board, being this complete MIDI guy, figuring out how to do the whole thing. I had this pedal with motorized faders. This is the sickest shit ever. And I go to finally hey, I'm finally ready to write a song. And I spent so much time playing with those buttons that nothing came out. And I went and picked up my acoustic guitar and I wrote a song in 30 seconds. So I would say, don't overcomplicate things and just trust yourself. You don't need all this fancy shit to make something cool.
I love that. Those solid words of wisdom. Thank you for that, Michael. Cliff, how about yourself?
I'm going to just piggyback that a little bit. I've never written songs that I liked more than when they were on the acoustic. And oftentimes it was I have probably thousands of riffs on my computer that I've been oh man, this would be a great song, but it's just the riff or it's just a piece. And there's the songs I've written on the acoustic I play over and over and over, and those are the ones that always stuck. But I would say do yourself a favor and try to do some of the research that I was talking about earlier. Look at Earshot for getting stuff on the radio. Look up all the university stations across the country, because those people are going to give you plays for sure. And just keep going. It takes a long time, especially if you're playing a local scene and you have a tough time touring or whatever. I mean, unless you're going to be out on the road touring the whole year, it's going to take you 10 years. And then all of a sudden you're holy shit, shows. And the shows are all of a sudden are just get big. And then all of a sudden your people are recognizing you or like, hey, you're in that band. Like it takes a lot of time. Last piece of advice. Does everybody
Hey,
this is Jamie. He's drunk. He's gonna say some things.
hey, welcome. It's all good.
Live by it, stand by it, dream it,
Love it.
win it.
Love it. Thank you. Great words of wisdom. You know what? This is perfect because I couldn't really think of anything else left to ask. I think you guys have said a lot of great stuff. I love your journey, Cliff. It's just, you're obviously someone who loves doing this and just probably will not stop regardless of where you are as a musician in your career. And I love that because that's what keeps this whole thing fucking going. It's not about the money. It's not about how big the crowd is. It's about the love for what we do and just being able to actually perform for anyone. One person, 5 people, 100 people, 1,000. It doesn't matter. They're all
Cheers
the same.
to that, man.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. With that, Cliff, like I said, when the next Get Mine's album comes out, I want to hear it. We're going to throw on that Chunk song again. You sent it to me. We were checking it out right before we brought you on. We're going to close with that. I want to thank you and Michael for taking the time, as well as, I'm sorry, what was your name
Thanks
again?
for the chat.
Jamie.
Jamie, thank you for crashing. I always
It's
love
what I do.
smiling faces. You guys, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you for taking the time to be on the show. I wish you guys a great 2023. And until next time, love you guys. Keep kicking ass and doing what you do.
Thanks for having us, Nate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Peace out, guys.
Peace out.
That was fucking awesome, guys. Those guys are dope.